Okay, hello and welcome to the final part of day 3 of the animation of Mickey Mouse. So today I'm going to, well, in this part I'm going to be doing, that'll work. I'm going to be doing some cleanup. So I'm going to actually teach a bit about brushes and trying to get custom brushes. So as you can see here I've gone for the Toons vector layer and I'm going to go for, no, it's actually Toons raster. That's the vector layer, I'm pretty sure. So that's a raster layer and that's a Toons raster layer. The difference between these I don't overly remember, but that's more so for individual pictures. So you'll see a lot of my reference pictures are on Toons raster layers. They're blue. So that's just a little observation for you. I believe they are more for larger image files. But we're going to do this. So we've got this selected and the brush selected. So what we do is we come up to here to raster. If you're on vector, you choose vector. We go to raster and we have all of these brushes to work with. They're all different. They all have their own unique look. So, because we're doing cleanup, I'm going to zoom in and we'll find a good brush. And that's it. Doesn't particularly matter which one we pick, as long as it's really nice. This one's nice because it's got a nice natural kind of feel. This one's good. To be honest, with a lot of these, they're quite unique in that they're very niche. Like, these are effects brushes, so they genuinely probably like that, they're kind of weird. But we want something. The standard ink brush isn't that bad. Hatching brush. And if you want to change the size of it, you just come up here and change the size. But since they're watercolor texture, so ink's pretty good, and I might actually go with ink. I know it's boring, but you know, it's not exactly something. I can do -3 like that. I might have to do, I might do -2. Basically, we do, yeah. Press on it as hard as possible, see how big it gets, and then we'll go for the small. So, let's start with. So cleanup is by far one of the longest things in animation. But it is the most rewarding. So you do actually see you do actually get a very nice result from cleanup. And also, depending on your project, cleanup can last like a short amount of time. Like, this is very simple because it's just taking the drawing layer and basically going over it. There's not a lot to it. It's very simple. And it's very much what you see is what you get. I've also just not done the color, so that's that. So yesterday I was working on the thumbnail for the second day, and I was colouring in Mickey Mouse, which I've been doing a lot of these in black and white. Instead of doing him black, instead of doing him in black for things, I chose a very dark grey. and I actually really enjoyed the way it looked. So if this doesn't take too long, we might continue that today and actually do some colouring as well. Because I didn't do any colouring. I do kind of feel bad that I didn't do it, but at the same time. So I've just come back from a lunch, so I'm not. Personally, I just like animating. I don't think I'm the best at it. I don't. And I know there's better people than me out there, but I really enjoy it, and I try really hard with it. So sometimes I'll prefer to just animate than eat. And then I'll have my lunch 2 hours later and be like, why am I so hungry? Which has happened a few times. I really do. I really feel it. Now, I don't actually know how thick Mickey Mouse's tail is, but I believe it's quite thin and wispy, so we're going to. And I can see there's a slight issue with his ear here, in that when I did the framing, I kind of didn't attach it to his skull. Okay. So that is our Mickey Mouse frame 1. And that took me nearly 8 minutes. So considering we have 23 frames, 8 minutes frame, it should take me probably 2 hours. But, I do actually think that. Yes, so because this is still vectorized, you can change the color away. Still. So just as a little heads up for that. If anybody wants to know. I wanted to know. I'm just going to do the frame thing. I just realised that I can't actually make any sense of what the fucking things are because I've added a bit of detail with the now. So when I originally set out to do this, when I was thinking of characters to draw for this, Mickey Mouse was one of the first characters that immediately popped in my head, if not the first that popped in my head. For a mix of my internal struggle with drawing mice, I don't know why, and just a joy of and of an appreciation of the character. I'm a big fan of Walt Disney, and I think he's as a businessman, things like that, I think he's a great person. The anti-Semitic stuff gets confused with something that was said that wasn't actually true, so he just seems like a great guy. But learning a lot of his history with the company, he really. There's a saying in England that my dad uses, and I think it's like, take from Peter to pay Paul, or something like that. What it means is you live very cash in hand. So as you get one check, you pay off another. As you get your money, you immediately spend. You immediately have to spend it all on bills. You're living very much paycheck to paycheck. I don't overly know what the expression is. Like catch Peter to pay Paul. I can't remember. I know pay Paul is in it. That's all I know. But yeah, he was, all the money he made from Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, spent it on Pinocchio. All the money he made on Pinocchio, spent it on Dumbo. Not all of it, granted, but a large amount of his money was reinvested into his production. Because that's what he cared about. And, to be honest, kinda makes sense. If success can't be replicated, is it really success? Very true in animation. If you can draw one frame really good, but you can never draw it again, there's not really much point to that one frame. I have a little story to tell, but my game I've been getting into lately. It's called Blood Bowl. It's a board game in England that also has some digital and video game. What would you call it? Like remakes, creations? I don't know. Interpretations. That's probably the best way. So there's some gaming interpretations of the board game. And to be honest, I think it works for a lot of complex board games, especially things like Warhammer and things like that, because they're just like, have you ever tried to read them? Like, yeah, you can get them in the same way that you can learn a language. Like, it's not easy, but there's a lot to figure out there and a lot to remember. Like, I played it as a kid. So as I hated it, I had no idea what the fuck was going on. All my friends that did destroyed me. I liked the painting more, appealing to me. But when it's digitized, a lot of that like dice rolling and having to know variables, you can just simulate by saying like, okay, this is going to be like it's already pre-calculated. So you're like, okay, if you do this, it's a +5. It's a 5 plus. And you're like, oh, okay, so that's really high risk. If I do this, it's really low risk. Yeah, all that stuff you don't have to remember. You don't have to have a giant Bible on how the hell we even play the game. But yeah, I've been really into Blood Bowl recently, and I when I was younger, I used to play. I used to go to Warhammer Club with my friends in school, and to be honest, they'd play, and I would just sit and watch, just because I wanted to be there with them. But one of the games that was being played was Blood Bowl, which is a fun American football, but like you're allowed to kill the other teammates, really. Very fun, very technical, and to be honest, a lot of strategy in it. So I found out I had the digital game on my Steam account. So I was like, oh, you know what, I'll load it up and give it a go. So I started playing and I actually really had a lot of fun. And I really love naming the characters, coming up with teams, making some bold plays. So that's been really fun. But I was reminded that when I used to be there, we used to have to play against our teacher, who was a guy called Dr. Woodruff. And he loved to play Blood Bowl. And if you beat him, you got to win the Fish Cup. That was the sort of trophy of the club. Now, what I've recently learned is that during that time, he was one of the best, he used to be, at some point, a world champion of that game. With one of the two teams that we could play in the club. So if you played with it, you're playing against a world champion with his team. If you're playing against him, he knows everything that you could possibly ever know about that team, or ever try. So and it was all for the Fish Cup. Like, it was the worst, it was the smallest kind of reward you could get. But yeah, it was the hardest challenge. It was like a Dark Souls boss for a really terrible reward. But it was never about the Fish Cup. It was just about the game. And in hindsight, like, I wish I actually played that a lot more, because it was a game where you created a team of. It's a game where you create a team of 11 American football players, the fantasy American football players. And I preferred that more because I was always a person who's very attached to characterization. So if I came up with a name for my character, or like I really liked the model or something like that, I'd want him to do well. And in Warhammer, that's a terrible thing because they'll get blasted to smithereens. Also, if your opponent knows, they're going to be like, right, I think I'm going to just aim my cannon at, I don't know, let's say my favourite character is Tommy Titan Toes. They'll be like, right, I think I'll aim at Tommy Titan Toes, and oh look, he's dead, and that's it. I gotta play with 20 guys I wanted to die, but my one guy died. Without doing much. Also, in the grander war game, it's just individuals don't have the same performance. So it wasn't really, in hindsight, it wasn't really for me, but I did love the universe, and I still do. Still it's a really clever universe. What can I talk about? Oh, what else do I like? I like basketball. I've been really like getting into basketball in the last few years. Before I had like a passing interest in it, I used to watch it with my dad sometimes. If we have a quarter game on, which is very rare. But now I'm more interested into it. I make a bet. I pick teams every year. So I did it this year. I did it last year. I picked the Suns to win, and they came in the finals. And then I did it this year, and I picked the Celtics in the finals. But I made it a little more interesting. So in the regular season, I picked two teams for the East and two teams to the West. And I did this with a bunch of my family. So yeah, then the playoffs happen, and if your teams didn't make, and you get a point score based on how well your team did. So let's say you pick two teams and they both got first, and in the East they both got first and second. You would have 3 points. That's 1 and 2. Whilst in if you picked someone that got seventh and someone that got eighth, you'd have 15 points. So it just keeps working on. And then the person with the most points gets first pick. Also, their teams are reserved. So if you picked first and second, and then you're like, well, actually, I think the team that came second place, looked like it was doing better. I'm going to go with them. Then the first place team is up for grabs. If anybody wants to switch off, they can't be picked on a circuit. And then in the playoffs, you only get one team per side, and then in the end, they get eliminated. So it was quite a fun and interesting little thing. I feel like friendly competition for that sort of degree is very fun, especially on sports that people don't really know much about, because a lot of times people pick quite dumb teams just because they want to be funny. So, like, well, I'll give an example. My dad picked a lot of teams he remembers from like the 80s. So he picked like the Chicago Bulls straight away. Because he's like, yeah, Michael Jordan was great on them. So, well, he hasn't played for like 30 years. But sure, whatever. Yeah, so he was picking a lot of teams like that. And then, so this is what I was saying. They pick stupid teams like that. So I think he picked the Pelicans. And, as like a joke team. And then he picked the Pelicans and the Lakers or something like that. And he's like, I expect the Lakers to do well because they always do well. And the Pelicans, there's my joke team, things like that. But people get really excited when their joke team actually starts performing adequately. Like the Pelicans actually made the playoffs. So he's like, well, hang on a second, I'm quite interested now. It's an interesting sort of thing because it makes people care about something that they don't really care. That underdog mentality comes back. It comes back around because people want to see. They want to see an upset. And the Lakers didn't even make the playoffs, and the Nets also didn't make the playoffs. So it was a very interesting year. I picked the Suns again because I was like, yeah, but also I like the Suns. I like Arizona. I think it's a lovely state. I've been once. I didn't go to the Grand Canyon because I wanted to, but then one of the big problems in America is people will say like, oh yeah, you should go see the Grand Canyon or whatever. And then you look at it on a map and it's like, yeah, it's only 12 hours away. Oh, it's 12 hours there and 12 hours there. Yeah, you rent a hotel or something. What the hell? And then you remember that America is the size of 8 different countries. I don't really know if there's another country on the planet that's adopted the sort of state system that they've got. Because I think it might be very unique to America. It's a very bizarre system to section off your country into 54 or 55 or whatever it is, 50 individual regions governed by unique parties, but ultimately collaborate under that. Like it makes sense in. It's kind of what they did in kingdoms, isn't it? But to be honest, America's a weird country in general because it stems from a lot of European countries deciding to settle into making a sort of super country. Places like France and England, going over Ireland as well, I think. Going over, putting a lot of colonies down, creating mini towns, and then providing them with resources. But ultimately living under their rule until it grew too big, and then they wanted their own freedom because they were much more independent country. So it was a very weird experiment. That's what it's become. And I find it interesting. I find it interesting because the history of it is very small in comparison to other countries. Like take China for example. Like China's old. They're around during the ancient Egyptians. And it had an emperor. How weird is that? But America's been around for. Well, I don't know anymore. I don't know how long it's been around for, but it's not that long. In England, we got a queen. Which I was thinking about it the other day. I don't actually get the point of the queen because we pay a lot of taxes to keep the rich, but then she owns pretty much England. So if we didn't have to pay taxes and she just charged like a landlord's fee, like you do with an apartment or something like that on the land, so that regions had to pay her, she'd just be a normal, legitimate, possibly wealthier business because she could just do what she wants to do. It's not like people wouldn't pay. You know, if she controls pretty much, she could just she technically owns all of London, so she could just make herself into a private company and charge an exorbitant amount of money in London if they don't just kick them out. And yeah, I mean that would far outweigh any tax she could ever charge. But she might get like the whole French Revolution thing. She might get her head chopped off for that. It's not a great idea to upset the people. I think people like the Queen in England for the same reason they like the lottery. It's the sort of dream thought that it could have been them when it really couldn't, but people do love that romanticised version of England. That's why Bridgerton and things like that have done really well in the coming years, because people want that sort of old-fashioned, this is what these countries used to be like. Right, so I've spent half an hour and I've done 1, 2, 3, 4 frames. So I don't know how to do a time lapse or a fast forward, but this might be the episode I do it. Because at 4 I've got to go. And I have got other things to do. I've got 5 other things to do today. If I do fast forward, it'll be now or soon. I thought about live streaming, but for starters, I don't know anything about live streaming. I know that I could use this OBS software I'm using now. But do I want to? No. I have a little tip for working, which I might share it here. I wanted to say it for a while. Say hi to people. And as soon as you're in any position of seniority in the company, say hi to new people. They'll genuinely love it. I did it when I was in a company recently. I was there for about a year, I think. And on the last one day, I got stuck in. I think everyone else went for lunch, and there was me and the new guy just looking after the building. I was still new, so I went over and I was like, you know what? I'm not having lunch. I don't really care. Or my lunch is really quick. I'll go say hi to him. And I did that, and he was a really nice guy. It's called Thomas. I still remember his name. But I found that, I mean, because I wasn't in like a senior role, like anything with any authority in the company, by the end of it, he felt like he could just say any of his grievances to me. Which is great, because I don't really care, and if anybody asks me like, oh, what do you think some of the problems are with the company, I'll be like, well, you know, I've heard from people that this is a big issue. But if no one ever tells you a problem exists, or you don't hear it from somebody, it never will change. So yeah, it was nice to have someone that could do that. And then I talked to him on Teams, things like that when I'm working, and if I needed some help. That's another great thing about it, is if you make friends just with everybody at work, and just say hi to people and they know you're around, you find that you can ask them for help whenever. You know, if your best friend at work, or your best work friend asked you, like, oh, can you help me with this real quick? And you knew it was quite a quick thing. I think you save a lot of time and company resources and just getting to know them. Because it's no longer awkward of like, oh, what if they say no? But I found it very weird. I found one of the biggest issues with that company I worked with was the disconnect in the ground floor and the upper floor. There was two different sections. There was the art department and there was the research department. And the people who've stayed there for a while, they kind of did talk with everybody, but the newer people, they just, they never even went upstairs. Like, you always have that casual kind of like, hey everybody, this is the new person, their name is this, must have around, and things like that. And they're just as nervous as you are, and you're like, oh, what do I do? And they're like, oh, what do you do? And I'm like, oh, I've got nothing to show you, I'm really busy, I'm in the middle of something or something like that. But, yeah. But I found it incredibly helpful, and at the end I was like, oh, I'm just gonna make friends with everybody. And it was great. By the end of it, I could just talk to. If I never needed anything from anyone, I could just talk to them, and that would be that. You also remembering people's birthdays before they tell you. Really good, really great trick. I mean, it's just not only a great thing for that, but just for social behavior. You know, people really do care that you remember. Do I ever do YouTube full time? I think so. Yeah, I think it's a great tip for working. Social interaction is very undervalued in the workplace. I find that happier staff and bosses that reinvest and care about their employees generally just a nicer places to work. Also, what's the point of making, I don't know, 300 million or something like that when you live off a salary? You live off a lifestyle that's like 10 million a year. Oh, maybe not. That's quite a lot. Okay, if you have a lifestyle that's like I have everything I need for £300,000 a year, it's like, well, what's the point of having £1,000,000 a year? That is very different. Just realized. Yeah, what's the point of having £1,000,000 a year if you live off a lifestyle of like 100,000? What are you doing with the other 900,000? There's the point where you just have to waste it. To other people, it's life changing. I wanted to make a huge document ages ago that would just be the problems of every single country. And it would just be kind of a detailing of what people thought was wrong with their country. Because I personally think in England, a lack of infrastructure and over reliance on terrible systems like the NHS. Like the NHS is a theoretically great system in that you're like, oh, free healthcare, that's perfect. But in result, it's a breeding ground of like it's managed incredibly poorly. It's underpaid staff who are overworked, dealing with a situation that Like, how is it the staff are overworked, underpaid, and yet you still got to wait 3 weeks to even see a doctor? Like, how the hell does that work? How are they overworked if you can't see them? But yeah, that's the situation. I'm not saying the NHS is bad. It's a really good idea. In fact, other countries use it. France, Switzerland. You know, they all have this healthcare, and everyone even looks at the Swiss healthcare as like that's the best one. So why don't we just copy them? Maybe a lot of political pride, maybe, but I don't know. I do feel like that is a thing though. A lot of countries don't want to adopt what another country is doing because they feel that if they just copy them, they'll be seen as lesser, which is stupid. Like imagine if no country copied the light bulb because they were like, well, it was an American invention, so we're not going to have it. It's like, oh, great, so you're just going to keep doing the candlelight by the window thing. Brilliant. Alright, considering how long this is taking, it's nearly 3 o'clock. I'm going to stop the recording and I'll start it back up when I'm done. Because I don't want to lose this file. But basically that's it. I'll just be going over, kind of beat for beat, what every single frame's going to look like, putting in the details. And then I'll probably come back and show off some colouring, maybe, but I'll show the final result. We can probably see a good amount of it now, actually. So that first little section's nice. Yeah. But that's the plan, so I'll see you when I'm done. Okay, after 2 hours, this is the final result. We've got a nice little skipping animation. I didn't color it in, but I like it. And that is all.